Okay, we are now live. I will switch to the screen. And here we go. 3, 2. Hello, everybody, and thank you again for joining us at the Belfort Group for the BG Insights Videocast. Today should be a great session. Looking forward to talking to my colleague and longtime friend, Megan Page. Reputation management has been something she and I have dabbled in over the years, and professional service practices, which she leads, is something that I've worked in for quite some time. So really interested to dive into this conversation today and see how things have stayed the same or have changed based on what's going on in our business. But as a reminder, we are a digital marketing and public relations agency based in Boston with 3 practice areas: higher education, public affairs, and professional services. And professional services, as we sort of kid in the office, is sort of our catch-all. The variety of clients in that space and in that practice are pretty diverse. And the work we do in that practice is also diverse. And I think Megan can speak to some of that as well. So welcome, Megan. Appreciate you taking the time today. I'm looking forward to the chat, to the conversation.
Thanks, Don. Thank you all for joining today. And we're just going to spend a little bit of time here today talking about ways that companies can strengthen their reputation as they prepare for reentry here, which is an exciting thing to think about. So Don gave a little overview of the agency and some of the clients that we work with. So I'll skip over that part and jump in here to talk a little bit about reputation. So before I get into talking about how you can strengthen your reputation, I think it's important to talk about what is your reputation, right? And it's your character as an organization, the enduring character of an enterprise, and the composite picture of its key traits as seen through the eyes of its audiences. And obviously this is impacted by the marketplace that you're operating in. And it's something that if you have a strong reputation, it can really benefit you. And if your reputation isn't strong, it can also really hurt your chances at it being successful as an organization. So it's a very valuable asset. It takes a long time to build, and it's very easy to damage too. So an important piece to think about as we think about reentry and how to be relevant and kind of start off on the right foot as we gain trajectory here. Do you want to go to the next slide, Don? Thank you. So right now, what can you be doing to strengthen your reputation as you think about reentry? And there are a lot of different things that folks can be doing, different channels they can be using. One of them is to provide relevant offerings. So what do I mean by this? So it may not be at the heart of your organization to offer something related to COVID. For example, you may not be a healthcare enterprise, but you may be able to find ways to provide services or offerings that are relevant right now, or to partner with clients you have or others that you've worked with in the past in order to do that. For example, one of our clients, Brighton Marine, they provide services to support veterans in a wide variety of ways. And they realize that right now, veterans who are isolated in veterans' homes, or maybe veterans who are immunocompromised and not able to get out of their own homes, are not able to connect with loved ones, friends and family, or even conduct telehealth visits. And so they've undertaken this initiative to put iPads in the hands of these veterans so they're able to connect with important people in their lives during this time when they're isolated. So that's a great example of one organization whose mission or work isn't necessarily directly related to COVID, but they found a way to be relevant in this time. Another example of that is an organization called Gentrea, which is an online estate planning platform that we've worked with. And estate planning is very relevant right now, but how do they, play in this COVID conversation and provide content that's even more relevant and timely right now? They've added discounts in, an essential employee discount that's a very substantial discount, and other discounts for folks to make it even more accessible at this time. And they've also, it's interesting, they've also started looking at pieces that are being written about estate planning in high profile publications and by thought leaders, and then using those to educate their own constituents through social media about what they should be thinking about, ultimately driving those folks to their website to learn more through their blog posts. So they're both, they're offering something that's related and relevant, but they're also being a resource in that way. Which leads me to the next bullet here: education, be a resource. So if you don't have an offering that's directly related to COVID at this time, there's still likely ways that you can be a resource or be a source of valuable information for your constituents. One great example of this is an organization that we work with, the Human Resource Leadership Forum, HRLF. They are a forum or a professional organization for senior level HR folks in New England. And traditionally, their programming has been their strength, and they plan their programs a year in advance. They have really high level speakers that come and provide a lot of value for their members. But in this time, they saw that their members needed more relevant, timely information. So they quickly pivoted and put some online programming in place. And their first webinar, which they held recently, they had, I think, almost 500 rather, attendees at that webinar. So obviously, there's a real need for them to be a resource and a thought leader right now and provide this education for their constituents. Another group we work with that's doing this is the Joe Andrewsy Foundation that provides financial support for cancer patients and their families. And right now, JAF, they're supporting their grant recipients the way they always have, but there's a need in the marketplace among their constituents for education around what does COVID-19 mean to their community, and how can they help to educate folks about how they can keep cancer patients safe if they're a family member of a cancer patient, or if they're a cancer patient themselves, what they need to be doing right now to stay safe. So they've taken on that role of helping to educate their constituents, even though that's not what they do. They're not a healthcare organization, but it is relevant to their community, and they've stepped into that very important role. And the third bullet I have here is thought leadership. And this is an important time for that too. I think everyone is looking for resources, and there are lots of ways that you can reach your constituents and provide this thought leadership. And it may be through your own channels, like newsletters, or it may be through publications or webinars. For example, one of our clients, Cushman and Wakefield, they have really looked at their mission during this time and seen that, I mean, this is something part of what they always do, but they have really revisited that piece of their mission that is to be a trusted advisor for their clients. So to step into that role, they've produced an immense quantity of information about how organizations should be thinking about re-entering the workplace, what a safe office space looks like. So they've published a tremendous amount of information for folks to refer to, and they're now sharing that information through webinars and through op-eds to try to educate the public about what they can be doing. So this is, I mean, there's, I think the channels that you share it through can be as varied as the, organizations that are out there. It just depends on how your constituents are receiving the information, but there's a lot of things you can be doing to be part of the conversation right now and be strengthening your own reputation as you think about re-entering and how to get that trajectory going. And the last point I wanted to make here in talking through this is that trust, I think, is at the heart of reputation, right? And it starts with trust. And if you do what you say you're going to do and you're true to your mission, then your constituents will trust you. And when they trust you and you continue to deliver on those promises, that's when your reputation grows and builds. And then that's how you ultimately grow your business and your organization.
That's a great point. You touched upon this a little bit earlier about channel mix, and every client I think that we have worked with in the past. I remember when you and I were pitching reporters back in a date that's a long time ago. We were pitching reporters through the fax machine. Obviously, times have changed. So, and there's a number of channels at our disposal where we don't have to rely on the Boston Globe or the New York Times to carry our reputation anymore. So, speak to when a client comes to you and says, "Hey, look, we need to enhance our reputation and get our brand out there." When we hear this all the time, get it out there. What do you hear, and how do you sort of go through the process of sort of channel selection and developing a campaign that sort of meets their needs, but at the same time, doesn't throw everything at the wall, but does it strategically?
Yeah, so I think an important piece of that is thinking about, okay, where are your constituents? Who are you trying to reach, and what's the right way to reach those folks? For example, Eastern Site Supply is one of our clients, and while social media isn't a platform that necessarily reaches folks on construction sites, they have a dedicated newsletter list that they feel is a very effective way of reaching those folks. So for them, their newsletter is a great channel. For others, LinkedIn is a great channel. It may be, and then there's, I think right now we also have to take into consideration that people are captive audiences in front of their computers too. So there's a tremendous amount of traffic on social media and on the web, and you can self-publish, obviously putting it out through LinkedIn and through your website. But also it's, if you have the resources to spend a little bit or invest a little bit in some paid social, it could really help to elevate your reputation and help to heighten awareness of your brand right now, because there are so many eyeballs that are available. It's, for example, the Joy Andruzzi Foundation we've been working with them on this Faces of JAF campaign that they've just undertaken recently in an effort to start to increase awareness of their organization. And they're finding that, they've got different folks that they're interviewing over video, and then they're pushing these videos out through some paid social campaign that's over Facebook. And the amount of clicks that they're getting and their cost per click, the clicks are so high and the cost is so low that they're really blown away by the campaign. And I think it's a moment in time here where we have this captive audience, and we can capitalize on it if your content is meaningful and is real, right? It's important to, I think, and that comes back to what's your mission, and are you being true to yourself, and is what you're putting out there consistent with your reputation and going to help to build that trust?
Sure. No, in our business, there's always it's always been an old school saying of there's no bad PR, right? Any PR is good PR, and some still think that way. But no, I guess there may, in your opinion, I'd love to hear this. Are there right times or wrong times in terms of just general awareness campaigns? I mean, obviously, as a society, there's a million channels and there's a lot of messages coming at us all the time, which means regardless of the industry you're in, it's very competitive. So, is there a bad time or a good time for awareness campaigns? And what's your thinking around that framework?
That's an interesting question. And I think that has a lot to do with what's happening internally in your business. Are you at a place where you are ready to build awareness and ramp up, or are you in a little bit of a quieter period? What's interesting to think about is if you've got other campaigns and fundraising efforts or sales efforts going, to have awareness campaigns running concurrently with those is an interesting idea, because then you're building that awareness at the same time you're trying to further your goals. So I think you've always got to be doing that work. It's kind of like, we talk about in this business of communications, it's the constant drumbeat. You've always got to be out there telling your story consistently and in a way that resonates with your audience if you're going to educate them about what you have to offer.
Good point. Now, the other question I think that's here in the queue is it's obviously the role of websites. It's funny, back in, like I said, late 90s, early 2000s, when the websites became a really good thing, and they're now obviously commonplace. But I think that there are times brands get away from that storefront. And nice plug here for our creative team who do fantastic work on our websites for our clients, which are really important. Talk about sort of, what brands should be thinking about as it pertains to their website and its role in reputation management.
Sure. So this is an interesting moment in time too, because for a lot of businesses, things have been, in a lot of organizations, whether you're for profit or nonprofit, things have been a little bit slower right now. In some ways they've been busier, but in other ways they've been slower. So you might have an opportunity right now to step back and look at your website or look at your marketing in a way that you don't usually have the opportunity to do that. And it's really important to do that. Is what you're putting on your website, true to your mission, true to your reputation? Is the language you're using the language that's going to resonate with your audiences? Is it a lot of jargon, or is it really pretty clear and understandable and engaging? I think it's, this is an opportunity for folks to take a look at that and prepare their websites, make sure that the language is what it should be in terms of reflecting the work that they're doing, and then also ensure that they're optimized for SEO. So they're ready to hit the ground running when business does start ramping up again, that they're putting their best face forward, because today that really is your calling card. And I I
Mm,
didn't talk about that here, but this is folks should definitely be taking advantage of this time to make sure that what's on your site is accurate, that you're refreshing
mm.
content regularly, and that it's optimized for SEO to make sure that you're getting as many eyeballs as you can onto that site.
Sure. I think the one golden question we always get is, well, how do I measure effectiveness, and how do I sort of put a pulse on my reputation? I have particular opinions on that, and obviously there's really no right answer. But in your world and the work that you've done in the past and currently for our clients, where have you been effective in being able to measure, a brand's reputation? What does that look like?
So that's something that there's a lot of different thinking around and different ways of doing that, I guess. And at the end of the day, I would say, your reputation is managed by your success ultimately. So if you are successful, and whatever that means to you, whatever you've set those benchmarks to be, and if you are able to meet those goals, and exceed those goals, then you're doing it right, or you're doing what you need to be doing in a way that's
Mm,
resonating with your audiences. There are a lot of different measurement systems out there, and folks that will quote unquote measure your reputation.
sure.
And we actually at Morrissey and Company, we used to do the reputation index every year, where we ranked all the companies in terms of their reputation in the Boston area, and not all the companies, but the largest companies. And it was always interesting to see. I think the ones that invest in more than just their business, that invest in
Mm,
being good members of the community, good citizens, invest in their employees, those
mm,
are always the folks that have the strongest reputations too. It's
yeah.
like, you're going to get what you give. And if you're really staying true to your mission and being a good partner, I think for the community, that comes back around too.
Yeah. I mean, I think the beauty in the in what we do for our clients is oftentimes we are playing in spaces or places where we're driving revenue, and that's either enrollment for higher education, or leads to a website for a supply company, or people signing up for an estate plan. So really, those are the kind of metrics I would love to play in and speak to more often. But sometimes we're focused on public relations, but there are times where an article in the Globe or CNN, for that matter, could drive traffic and drive particular leads. So I think, to your earlier point, I think it's all these channels in tandem, but kind of taking a very honest stock at where you think you are, because now with digital communications, your audience will tell you what they think of your brand. If you
Yep.
get a bad delivery from Amazon, you bet your bottom dollar somebody's going to be on Twitter complaining about it, right? So there's channels and there's mechanisms to get feedback, and I think to your point really earlier, it takes a long time to build these reputations, but they can be ruined in seconds. So it's one of those things that kind
Yeah.
of keep a pulse on all the time.
And I think, you were just speaking to this too, but, when I talk about success and meeting your goals, I think all of the work that is happening on the marketing and communication side, it's essential that that be informed by what the goals of the organization are. And then you,
Yeah,
you back into it from there, and you've got to constantly be measuring against that to know if the success is working, right? If you're being successful. And if you're not,
agreed.
then what do you need to shift? Is it how you're doing? Is it what you're delivering? Is it how you're doing business? Is it how you're talking about your business?
Mm,
There are a lot of different pieces that play into that prism, but the whole composite of it is ultimately your reputation, right?
mm-hmm. It's great stuff. As we wrap up here, anything that you did not touch upon that you'd like to leave with the audience?
I think it's interesting. The other day we were on a call with one of our clients, and she said this is this in this moment in time, it's important for companies to really revisit their mission and think about, why are you in business, right? Or why do you exist as an organization? And then to make sure that all of your employees and that everybody who is engaged and working in that organization are bought into that and are invested in that. And if you can do that and you can move forward and come through this as a group, we're all in this together here. And if you can come through this as a group, we'll be stronger for that. And I think that ultimately those organizations that take the time to do that are going to be the most successful coming out of this.
Yeah, I've heard one of our old colleagues talk about, reputations being like raising children, right? It takes a long time and some patience to get things going, but ultimately ultimately things set sail. But if you do it right, it works. So
Yeah.
I want to thank you for the time. Good insights. We will do this again, I'm sure. For those that are interested, that are in the sort of professional services space, want to know and learn more about our work there, you can find us at thebelfolkgroup.com as well as on the socials at the Belfolk Group. But thank you again, Megan, for the time, and we will do this again soon.
Thank you, John.